Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the TruthEars Pure. This is the follow-up to the Hexa, which was TruthEars 1+3 hybrid, and an attempt to offer under the $100 price point an IM which was tuned in a very, let's say, mature manner. It was and it is still for many considered one of the best 1+3 hybrids, one of the best hybrids under that $100 price point. It has its strengths undeniably. I myself personally can appreciate it for what it tries to do, although due to my preferences in music and so on, I find it to be sometimes overly sterile. Yes, it does have a very, let's say, attempt, or it does do a very solid attempt at being very correct across the board in terms of its frequency response, having nothing really stand out or nothing, be, how can I say, bad, be the point of contention in terms of its sound. Very smooth type of bass presentation, very gradual pinna gain, peaking around 3K, and then slowly rolling off. So it's a very easy to listen IEM. That's unquestionable, but it does lack the dynamics to sometimes give certain genres a little bit of a certain amount of liveliness. So it can sound a little bit too overly boring, at least for me. Anyway, enter the Pure, which is basically the same shell, just a slightly thicker shell than the original Hexa. So there's extra thickness in the shell. Let me just grab you both right hand side so you can see. I'm sure you can pick up on what I'm saying. Okay. You will notice as well that the Hexa doesn't have any vents on the shell, while now the Pure does have a vent over there. So a slightly thicker shell, slightly revised faceplate design, and apparently the drivers inside, in terms of the dynamic driver, has also been revised. This was roughly $79 back when it came out. This is now roughly the same thing. It oscillates. I've seen it as much as 89, but it usually oscillates there between the 79 and 89. Coupled to these two 1+3, I've got here two other 1+3 IEMs, which I believe have earned their right to also be very solid, if not even perhaps wiser choices in terms of this segment of IEMs. One is the Jazeer X Zeos Defiant, and 1+3, which is carried by HIFIGO, priced at around the same $79 to $89, depends on what time of the year you're picking it up, if it's on sale or not, with a tuning which is very much reminiscent of the Jazeer's 61T, the 1+6. So this 1+3 and the 1+6, they sound very similar. If anything, the 1+3 here, the Defiant, will maybe be a little bit more balanced out in terms of the upper frequencies, while the 61T was known for being overly smooth in the top end. This one, the way that it was marketed was that it was a bass monster, the whole thing behind Zeos and this and that, because Zeos is a bass lover and blah 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 blah. Anyway, that's all for me marketing. The reality is it's basically the same thing in terms of bass. I'm almost positive it's actually using the same bass driver. It's then in the section of the upper mids and treble, they've been given it a little bit more energy, and you know what, it actually has worked. And I have to admit that it actually works better than the 61T in the sense that it's more versatile. Coupled to the price that it has, it's a winner, period. The other one is Slivo, which is from CKLVX. It's kind of I wouldn't say sub-brand, but it's a series of IEMs that CKLVX Meyer Audio makes. So Meyer Audio makes CKLVX and they make Slivo. So two subdivisions of IEM models that they have, and this is the SLA3, which is in essence a 1+3 as well, which is in essence an SL41 Mark II, which is it's basically taken out one BA, and that has not in any way hampered or hindered the type of sound or the overall tuning, but had quite an effect in terms of the price. The price has dropped. I've seen the SLA come down to as much as $99, so from its usual $119 more or less, and when you compare it to the SL41 Mark II's 150, 160 price point, it again makes way more financial sense, because you're in essence getting the same thing. So what we have here is then four 1+3 variations. The main difference here between the Hexa and the Pure is that while on the Hexa they've purposely, like I said, tamed the base presentation. On the Pure, they've given it a little bit more energy, all the way to 1 kilohertz. So there's a solid 2 to 3 dB at points increase in the bass, while maintaining the rest up top basically the same. And in my opinion, this has been the best option that they could have done, because it's given the Pure a much needed liveliness. So it's a significantly more alive IEM than what the Hexa was. Gone is the kind of boring presentation, and with certain genres you notice that there's a little bit that's missing there, while now in the Pure everything is, in my opinion, substantially more balanced. Like I said, bass, mids, upper mids and treble basically the same, but if anything, I think that if there is a little bit of detail that you've lost, which is, in my opinion, very minor, what you've gained in terms of overall tone and tonality has been more than made up for that slight loss that you had in detail. So the extra bass that you're getting now in the Pure has made the overall tone and tonality, the overall timbre of instruments, the overall engagement, the overall bass resolution, the way that it's capable of resolving passages which had more complex bass done into them in a manner which is, in my opinion, significantly better than the Hexa. And when you couple that to the fact that they've maintained the price the same, I mean, the Pure is the obvious choice on it. Period. It's end of story. As compared, and again, let's keep in mind, we have three very different type of tunings here. We have on the Hexa an ultra neutral type of tuning. We have here a neutral warm on the Pure. We have here on the Defiant I would say not neutral warm, I would say a medium kind of warm presentation, and all of these three having the gliding style of bass, mind you. While there on the Sliver, we have definitely the one that will maybe come across as the most V, with a tuck style of bass, and then an upper end which again is very prominent. While these three, the difference isn't significant in terms of overall energy levels, except obviously when comparing the Defiant to the Hexa. Yes, definitely way more bass. In terms of the mids, all of these three, mids, upper mids and treble, they all kind of have the same sort of energy level. More detail here on the Defiant up top past 10K, definitely. So the most bass, the more detail up top, but they also have tucked in that bass, although it's in a gliding style. They've also tucked it in so that you don't have unnecessary energy there in the bass to low mid part of the spectrum, which you do have here. But somehow here, the way that they've done it, it's kind of worked out, and ultimately the reality is this: be it the Defiant or be it the Pure, they are superior to the Hexa. I am sure that there will people that will appreciate the Hexa, but the majority, if you're trying to please a wider variety of audience, these two will definitely do the job better. In the case of the SLA3, the SLA3 has got that tuck style bass, which does emphasize the lower frequency, especially below 100 Hz, quite significantly compared to the rest. But again, they've done it in a manner where you don't really notice that there's much energy missing there between 100 and 300 Hz. A little bit less maybe impact here and there, but nothing, tremendous. And although then the upper end as well is 3 dBs, at times even 4 dBs more prominent than the others. So in that area there around 2 to 3, and then again that area between 4.5 and 7, 8. This has got more energy than the others. The balance that they've struck has been very well done. So there's no sibilance, there's no aggressiveness, there's no nothing. I mean, that's one common denominator here. In terms of BA timbre, aggressiveness, sibilance, or anything, nothing. It's clean. Obviously, guys, I'm taking into consideration the price. Obviously, if you really start wanting to find details to nitpick on, you'll find them. But when you consider the price, when you consider ultimately the hardware that's being used, nothing can be said there. I mean, the construction of the IEMs, it's all top-notch, especially at the price point, all resin shell, 3D printed, very nice. There's honestly the quality that you're getting from any one of these IEMs, especially I would say from the Defiant and the Sliver, superior to to the TruthEars. I think the TruthEars main drawback really is the cable. The cable here in the sleeve or on the Defiant is a nicer cable. Yes, it does have some nice tips. I must confess I didn't really like the tips too much. I found them to be a little bit too soft, but it does have a great big thick nozzle, and I guess that's why they use these tips. And if you were going to use something of equal diameter, of better quality, that would be more expensive and ultimately throw the whole thing out of balance in terms of sales price. So in terms of the way it matters, build quality, overall sound, they all are very good IEMs. That's undeniable. It's just where your preferences are. The Hexa will definitely be for those that are, I don't want to sound mean, but or maybe people that are a little bit overly boring, and no disrespect intended by that, while these three will definitely suit people that are like a little bit more spice in their life. That's as simple as that. Of all of them, or rather, let's exclude here the Hexa and let's talk mainly about the Pure, the Slevo, and the Defiant. Where does my tendency go towards? Well, when I consider price, definitely the Defiant. The Defiant is a phenomenal IM, and I'm a big fan of the 61T, so I would say that the Defiant is definitely the one that's the best choice. Secondly, the Slevo, even though it's more expensive than the Pure, and then the Pure in third place. Honestly, it's not that there's major differences between them in terms of overall sound. Yes, there isn't major differences, but I found the Defiant and I found the SLA3 to be still, even though the differences are not huge, still more balanced and more harmonious across the board than the Pure. The way that the bass comes across in either one of them, it's clean, it's defined, it's precise, it resolves well, it doesn't linger. Mids are phenomenal in either one of them. Maybe slightly better in vocal presentation here on the Defiant than on the SLA3, but nothing again that's a deal breaker. In terms of the overall engagement impact, I would say probably the SLA3 slightly edging out the Defiant, within the Pure in third place. Details up top, I would say these two come out, they're trade blows. In terms of timbre and tonality, all of these three are, in my opinion, very correct. I would say that the timbre and tonality that might be the most correct for me, for my ears, is this one, then the Pure, and then the SLA. So as you can see, there isn't a huge difference, a huge, the departure from either one of these three. These three compared to the Hexa, yes, completely different sort of presentation, completely different sort of IMs, way more sensible in my way of thinking to buy these three than those ones, again, unless you really like a boring presentation. It's as simple as that. And that's basically it. So Pure compared with the Hexa, a much welcomed upgrade in my opinion. I think they could have still improved it. The one thing that does irritate me both in the Hexa and in the Pure, and I don't know what it is, if it's maybe the internal crossover, however much I try to get a clean graph out of them, I just cannot get a clean graph. Doesn't matter if I change tips, I don't know what it is. I put the same dongle, I put in the Slevo, I put in the Defiant, I put in countless other IMs, and I get a nice clean, graph. I put in the Hexa, I put in the Pure, and I change tips, and I do whatever I want to do, and the graph, especially from the lower frequencies, it just comes out with a whole bunch of noise and so on. I can only assume that it's either my incompetence, or then it's something with the internal crossover that does affect somehow the way that the whole impedance matching between the actual dongle that's being used to make measurements, to power the IMs for the measurements, and the impedance of the driver affects this and introduces all these noises. Audibly, you don't really notice it. You don't. That's as simple as that. So that's it. Let me just quickly show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. All right. Okay, guys. So let's clean up here some graphs. All right. This is the graph for the Hexa. I apologize if the peaks there at 8K are not exactly matched, but the idea was just to give you a general idea. Like I said, I have all this bunch of noise here that it doesn't matter what I do. I tried even another set of Hexas that I have here. It's still the same thing. Either I'm doing something wrong, tried different dongles. It always happens. And the Hexa and the Pure and maybe one or two other models that I have are the only IEMs that do this. Okay, I tried different cables, did everything. So as you can see, very suave type of bass, very smooth, clean, undeniable, but boring at the same time, okay? The Pure introduces a much welcomed energy here across this whole lower part of the frequency up to about 800 hertz. and it's noticeable. It's noticeable, and in my opinion, like I said before, it has improved significantly the performance of this OnePlus 3. Putting in now the SLA3 and comparing it, I've normalized. Sorry, this is not the SLA3. This is the SLA3. I've normalized everything at 1 kilohertz. SLA3 is the only one that have then that tuck style of bass. You don't really notice that there's that much information missing here, and then it's got again loads of energy going into the pin gain and so on. That 100 hertz point there corresponds to about 2, but the energy that you have below plus the energy that you have on top there, kind of they match each other and they balance each other out. And the reality is, you know, there's no shoutiness, there's no sibilance, there's just a nice, clean, detailed presentation up top, coupled with a nice full bass. End of story. And then finally, the Defiant, a presentation which is perhaps you could say closer to the overall method of the Pure in terms of how they gliding the bass, although it dips slower here in this area between 150 and 700, 800 hertz. But then the pin again, the way it's doing things up top, again, mind you, this peak here should be at 8, but very similar. The past 10K extension, everything here is very similar. I found that the fact that it dips here hasn't impacted in any detrimental way sound, especially male and female vocals. Male vocals are still as husky as they need to be. There's no loss of impact. Drum, everything, plenty. I think it's also down to perhaps the Defiant having a better dynamic driver, and that's why you don't notice that there's this, let's say, dip here in the frequency response. No bleeding to the mids, which in the Pure you sometimes occasionally do get that perception, but the reality is this: be it the Defiant or be it the SLA3, which I've just placed, and I'm just going to remove here quickly. I'm actually put the SLA3 in red so you guys can see better. Okay, so the SLA3, and you can see again, although it's dipped, there's not much of a big difference in overall bass energy from one to the Defiant, from the SLA to the Defiant. Just more energy in that department of the upper mids and treble, definitely. And you do notice that there's a little bit extra energy, but guys, they just work. That's the reality. These IMs just work. I will call your attention to one aspect, which is while on the SLA3, the 100 hertz, like I said, corresponds to 2, and there's significant amount of energy above that, but then there's also plenty bass. On the Defiant, 100 hertz corresponds to basically 2K, but there's less energy above there and way more bass here, so the sound has a tendency of being slightly more warmer. You know, the only thing that it will affect ultimately is the timbre and the tonality, and that's why I said I think the timbre and the tonality of the Defiant is perhaps the one that agrees with me the most. Guys, and that's basically it. Hope I was able to shed some light on these IMs. Like and subscribe. Any questions, please feel free. Take care now. Bye bye.